Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Transfer portal season is upon us, and I want to take a deep dive into the South Carolina program and talk about some particular positions and players South Carolina might be targeting as the transfer portal opens. And what excites me most about South Carolina, what I think excites a lot of South Carolina fans, is this is a team that has a ton of young talent on its roster. And you look at the best way to supplement young but maybe inexperienced talent is going out and getting some experienced college football players that you know what they are at the college football level. And the transfer portal offers a massive opportunity to do that. Really excited to take this deep dive. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. This is going to be a team that it sounds like we'll be talking a lot about over the next couple of weeks as Shane Beamer gets aggressive in the transfer portal. If y'all do enjoy the content, you want to support the boys, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, I'll be doing my best to keep you guys as updated as possible with all the roster moves for South Carolina. Without further ado, let's get into this. And we got to start with the news of the morning. It's funny because I was prepping this, kind of talking about some offensive line targets, which we'll get into. And I take a look at Twitter, and it sounds like KJ Jefferson will be hitting the transfer portal, and South Carolina sounds like they are the front runner to land KJ Jefferson. This would be massive. I mean, you take a look at the quarterback room. Spencer Rattler was awesome for South Carolina. Now they need to work on that offensive line. We'll talk about some targets there, but KJ Jefferson would be a phenomenal addition to this South Carolina offense. KJ Jefferson, one of the more slept on quarterbacks in the SEC. This is a guy that can do it both throwing from the pocket, being an athlete, extending plays. It really excited to see if this actually happens. And you look at the South Carolina quarterback room, and when you lose Spencer Rattler, it sounds like it'll be Lenore Sellers heading into the 2024 year with not much competition or experience or depth around Lenore Sellers. Bringing in a guy like KJ Jefferson, one, Lenore Sellers can sit back and learn from one of the more experienced quarterbacks we see in the SEC. And two, I mean, the amount of things you can do with KJ Jefferson leading the offense, I think KJ Jefferson gets a very unfair rap, kind of similar to Spencer Rattler in terms of these two quarterbacks had very little protection in front of them and still were able to gut out some wins and put up some numbers for their respective teams. If South Carolina can get this offensive line right and go get KJ Jefferson, like, watch out for this South Carolina offense heading into that 2024 year. This one really does excite me. Now, if you do land KJ Jefferson, the next priority for South Carolina is getting this offensive line right. And you take a look at the South Carolina offensive line last year, and many South Carolina fans that watched on Saturdays, they saw it was a problem. It definitely does not take a rocket scientist to watch South Carolina on Saturdays and say, this offensive line does not look like an SEC level offensive line. You look at the numbers, 180 pressures given up to Spencer Rattler. That's by far the highest number I've seen since I've been diving into these programs. Only 2.8 yards per carry. So not only can you not, or you're struggling to pass protect, but you're struggling to run the football too. That is a really, really bad combination to be running an offense. So the offensive line looks like a massive need for South Carolina. Now, there's a ton of young talent. I mean, you were forced to start a couple true freshmen last year. You have Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson coming in the 2024 class. You feel good about the young talent on this offensive line, but in the SEC, you don't want to have pigeonholed yourself into starting first and second year guys. You want to bring in experienced guys who also can add some depth, some competition. And if those first and second year guys are ready to go and playing at a high level, sure, they get the starting job. But you don't want to be forced into starting guys who are not ready to start on the SEC football field yet. So you got to go to the portal. The first guy I think just completely fits the bill is Zeke Correll coming from Notre Dame. This is a guy who was a former top 100 prospect coming out of the 2019 class, has played a lot of football, has played it at a high level, can play center, can play guard. You take a look at his numbers last year on 272 pass pro sets, only gave up 11 pressures. This is a guy that's a 3-year starter. And so you're getting a football player that you are very confident is a plug and play kind of guy heading into the 2024 season at whatever position on the inside that you need him. I think that position versatility is a massive storyline for a guy like Zeke Correll. Position versatility, experience, high level of football play, like that's what you're looking for in terms of checking those boxes. The next guy I want to talk about, another guy that kind of checks the box of experienced college football player, Carter Smith. Now a little bit younger than Zeke Correll, coming from that 2022 class, but last year in 2023, 12-game starter at left tackle for Indiana on 417 pass pro sets, only gave up 19 pressures. As a Michigan fan, I know Carter Smith well. This is a very, very good football player that, again, one of those guys that probably a plug-and-play starter for South Carolina. And if you're South Carolina, you want to grab at least 2 or 3 of these guys that are coming in and you feel really confident that they're going to be quality offensive line starters for you in that 2024 year. Zeke Correll, Carter Smith certainly fit that billing. The last guy I want to talk about, and this is a little bit less of a plug-and-play guy, a little bit more of a lottery ticket, Alan Haran from the Division II ranks at Shorter. This is a guy that just picked up an offer from Clemson. And we all know Clemson, Dabo Swinney does not use the transfer portal. This is one of the first offers he's given to a transfer portal player. If Dabo's offering him, this guy can probably play, right? 6'6", 315 pounds, fluid mover. He's going to pick. He's picked up an offer from Clemson, from UCF. This is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if South Carolina goes out and offers and a little bit more of a lottery ticket. Like, how is the jump going to be from Division II to SEC football? You're not sure, but it's a guy that kind of checks off all the physical traits that you want. If you're looking for a guy that potentially massive upside, I mean, Alan Haran would be a very interesting guy to go after in the transfer portal. Next position I want to talk about, and this is a position that I think South Carolina tried to address last year, didn't do a great job of, and that's the running back spot. Right? You look at how they used the running backs last year. I mean, Juju McDowell and DeCorian Joyner, like 2 guys that they clearly didn't feel that confident being traditional running backs. Mario Anderson comes in, gives some good reps, but at the end of the day, that running back room is thin with true running backs. So you can go get a guy in Don Chaney from the University of Miami, and this is going to be a little bit of a pattern here. I think Miami has a ton of talent that is transferring out of this program, and Don Chaney Jr. would be one of those guys. You look at last year, over 450 rushing yards, 5.1 yards per carry in a 4-man committee backfield. Don Chaney's not transferring because he's not a good football player. Don Chaney's transferring because he wants a spot where he can get more work. I mean, the big bugaboo for Don Chaney, this was a guy who came in and started as a true freshman, tore his ACL, had back-to-back knee injuries. He's finally healthy again, had a fully healthy 2023 year. I think Don Chaney is one of the best running backs in the transfer portal right now. I think would be a great fit for Miami. This is a guy with a thick lower half, a true kind of between the tackles running back that can also make stuff happen out in space. This one would make sense. The next guy I want to talk about, Treshaun Ward, another one of my favorite running backs in this transfer portal cycle. Guy that started his career at Florida State as a walk-on, goes to Kansas State with a scholarship, was in a committee with DJ Giddens. You look at his numbers on his career, over 1,800 rushing yards, over 6 yards per carry on those rushing yards. A guy that's a little bit smaller, a little bit of a slighter frame than Don Chaney, but when this guy gets in space and this guy has the ability to make people miss at the second level, he's doing that with routine ease, and he's kind of hitting those big plays. So whether it's Don Chaney, whether it's Treshaun Ward, whether it's, and this is a position group that there are going to be a lot of guys that are in the portal who can play at a high level. It's much easier to go out and get a running back than it is to get quality offensive linemen in the transfer portal. I would fully expect Shane Beamer to bring in at least one running back into this roster. The last guy I want to talk about, going to the defensive side of the ball, staying at the University of Miami, Jahfari Harvey. And this is a guy that, again, transferring not because he didn't make it at the ACC level. This is a guy with 21 tackles for a loss, 10 sacks in his career. More just wants an opportunity to be a starter and have starting reps. They didn't really have at Miami because they had kind of a large rotation on that defensive line. You look at South Carolina, I think one of their big issues, and yes, the secondary no doubt was an issue. Maybe it's going to be hard to kind of narrow in on some targets because not so many guys have hit the portal from that secondary room yet. But you look at one of the problems that I thought South Carolina has. They were pretty solid against the run. That was our big concern heading into the year. I don't think the pass rush was very good. And I don't think the pass rush helped the secondary much. So, yes, the numbers from the secondary don't look good. I think the pass rush left a little bit to be desired, and you're losing a guy like Jordan Stratton, who is very good. You look at Jahfari Harvey. This is a guy that immediately comes in and is probably a starter, but at least a significant contributor for South Carolina, a team that had 4.4% sack rate. That was 115th in the country. They did not get after the quarterback very well. So getting a guy like Jahfari Harvey to me would make a lot of sense. We'll get a clearer picture about South Carolina, the guys they want to go after as more players hit the portal, as players from South Carolina also hit the portal. This is going to be a very exciting next couple of weeks, especially in terms of what Shane Beamer is going to be doing and being aggressive in the transfer portal. I'm very excited to cover it. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.